5:30. I will call this meeting to order. We will start with the consent agenda. All the following items which concern reports and items of routine nature normally approved at AHA meetings will be approved by one vote unless any trustee desires to have a separate vote on any or all these items. The consent agenda consists of the discussion, consideration, and action on the following items. Minutes of the special trustee meeting August 29, 2023. Minutes of the special trustee meeting September 19th, 2023. Finance committee minutes September 19th, 2023. And a check report August 9th, 2023 through September 8th, 2023.
I move we approve the consent agenda items A through D as printed.
Second.
Who seconded that? I'm sorry. All right, I have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Greg Bowman to approve the consent agenda as it was presented. Roll call vote, please.
Gaspard?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Simon? Yes. Brown?
Yes.
Hannaford?
Yes.
Okay, next item is the CEO's report. Candace?
Thank you. Looking at another new program, it's a contract that I'll bring to you next month. Senior Life Solutions is a program that a few of our affiliate hospitals with SSM have in place that seem to be doing very well in those communities. It's a great service for the senior adults, getting them help like grief counseling after loss, depression, those kind of things that they work on. We are looking at putting it in over at the homestead, and in doing that, we can then capture that square footage on our cost report. So any of that square foot that we would use over there, we would then put on that cost allocation of our cost report. So that's a good thing. So we'll explore that a little bit further and bring that to you next month. When we looked at it, the return on investment would be approximately $150,000 a year. So we'll talk more about that probably next month. I hope that you guys got to see the little social media posts. We had a patient put on social media that she had a really good experience with Dr. Tupper. I think that was last week maybe. Just singing his praises and how great the service was here, and that she was glad to get to do that here at home and not have to drive out of town to do that. So it's a good deal, and we'll be hopefully using that in our marketing, things like that in our marketing efforts. Recently we deployed Patient Point in our clinics for all of our clinic providers, including Dr. Tupper, Dr. Hummel, any of those docs that come here, in an effort to give patients the ability to review them. So if Hayla goes to see, say, Dr. Burke, she would get a link to a text link, and she would be able to click on that link and then leave immediate feedback. So if she wants to leave 4 stars, 5 stars, she can do that. If we needed to improve on something and she left, say, 1 star, and she was able to free text what the problem was, that immediately then is emailed to one of our staff members, and it gives us an opportunity for service recovery. Instead of waiting, to hear that, maybe see it on social media in some other format, it gives us the ability to have that feedback immediately. So I'm excited to see what that does for us. When you say are in the city or somewhere and you're Googling, where should I go eat? What are you looking for? You're looking for the place with the most stars and the good reviews. So that's what we're attempting to give our providers credit for the service that they can provide. So I think that'll be a good thing. InReach has been working on getting us a new general surgeon. As I mentioned last month, or maybe not last month, in the last few weeks. Dr. Daniel has accepted a full-time position in Texas and is relocating there. So InReach has been working on getting us a new surgeon, and I actually have a meeting scheduled on Thursday. They've had a new development, and I'm hoping that what they're going to tell me is this guy's going to cover for the next 6 months is what initially we had talked about. So hopefully hopefully that's going to work out. We continue working on reviewing our labor costs, our supply costs, trying to shore those things up, making any impact that we can there. We're beginning to implement charge reconciliations and post-pay audits for all revenue-producing departments. They will routinely audit their services and report their findings to the quality committee to ensure the financial integrity of our implementation processes. In simpler terms, to be sure that we're getting paid for the jobs that we're doing. We've had multiple patients inquire if we're able to provide weight loss drugs that other clinics are providing. You see it everywhere, you see it all over social media. So we are beginning to look into that. We've located a resource, and actually we are working on that tomorrow to try to finalize kind of the ins and outs of what that might look like.
Could any provider prescribe that stuff?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep, they can. So, is there any questions or concerns that you guys would have about that?
About the weight loss stuff? It scares me that I don't think there's enough research of long-lasting effects later on. True.
The problem is they're going to get it somewhere.
Oh,
I mean, it's, you know,
a lot of people are doing it.
and a lot of patients have been taking that, now the insurance companies are no longer covering it, and so they're getting kicked off, and they're looking for a resource. So we are trying to figure out how to help those patients. Sixth season is upon us, maybe a little bit early. I did not look at it today because it's been kind of crazy, but when I looked yesterday, we had 7 inpatients in the hospital. Clinics are fairly busy as well, and it's a challenging time with nursing and aid coverage. They're hard to find. So it's kind of been a challenge to get the schedules covered, but we're working on it. Everywhere we try to transfer patients out, and they say they don't have beds, and it's not that they don't have beds, they don't have staff beds. So I know everybody's dealing with it. The last thing that I did not have actually on there was I want to give a shout out to Regina Wilson for taking time to talk to a family the other evening. She talked to them about, you know, the efforts to keep the doors open, about our foundation, and the family brought me a check for $5,000 the next week, simply because of that conversation. And so I thought that was worth a shout out to Regina for that. Do you guys have any other questions for me? I know I kind of skipped over the nursing home thing. We're going to hit that maybe during Jason's report.
What was the name of the program that might go into the homestead for the?
That is Senior Life Solutions. And we will probably look at that contract in the next finance committee and then bring it to board. Any questions?
If there are no questions, Candace, I would entertain a motion for an approval or disapproval, I guess.
Make a motion to approve and accept the sheriff medical written report for September 26, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Hannaford, a second by Dr. Simon to accept the Share Medical Center written report for September 26, 2023. Roll call vote, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon. Yes. Brown,
Yes.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Gasper.
Yes. Candace, thank you. Next is the CFO's report.
So I added some visual aids to our presentation at the front. I know Candace and I talked after the meeting last month, and when I was going through the things that I talked about, you guys were always flipping back and forth. So I tried to give you some visual aids and bring it all to you. So if you have questions or input, something you'd like to see different, feel free to let me know, and we can try to make some adjustments. So we're operating cash for month ending August 2023. We ended up about $40,000 higher than the previous month at $73,000. And that represents about 2.9 days of operating expenses. Our total cash balance for the month, so that would be savings account, other monies that we have access to, is about $196,000 at the end of August. Our hospital accounts receivable, we did see an increase of about $200,000 over the previous month. So you can kind of see it is lower. So fiscal year 2024, which is this year, is the yellow line. It's a little bit lower than what it has been in years past, but we did see an increase, which I would say, in my opinion, was expected, with our implementation and the new EHR and getting everything straightened out as far as getting claims out the door. We did see a little bit of an increase there. The next page, it outlines our total days in our total gross AR days, unbilled, billed, and the total overall. You can see, last month and this month we've seen an increase in our overall total AR. Once again, that is due to our implementation and seeing things, working to get claims worked through and issues identified and get those claims out the door. For our hospital accounts payable, we closed out the month of August at $1.2 million. Historically, July and August are slower cash months for us, or revenue months for us. Then you add in additional expenses that we have for our EHR implementation and just our regular expenses cause our AAP to go up a little bit because we weren't able to pay as much of that down. Gross patient revenue. So as I was looking at this, I did notice that my graph dot is not in the right spot. So we actually had an increase in gross patient revenue from the previous month. So it was really at $1.6 million, and last month we were at $1.35 million. So it is a little bit, I need to get that updated, and I apologize for that discrepancy. So we did see things pick up in August over the month of July, which is always good. Total gross patient revenue. This is something I don't think I really pointed out in the past, but we talk about it during our med staff meetings. The physicians want to know, what the revenue for their clinics looks like outside of the hospital. And so for the clinics, we had about $141,000 in gross patient revenue. So you can see it was an increase over July. We are starting to see things get a little bit busier and pick up in the clinics, especially with school starting and things like that. Any questions on revenue before I move on to expenses? You guys are awful quiet tonight. Operating expenses. So we had total hospital operating expenses of $755,000 for the month of August. So after you take out all of our contractual adjustments and just other miscellaneous adjustments, that leaves us with a net loss of about $223,000 for the month of August. Historically, like I said earlier, these months tend to be a little bit slower. Our expenses tend to be the same. So you can see just based on the graph there that, we do get an incline in the month of February, March when our cost report money comes back. So I think we are consistent with where we have been in previous years as far as our net profit and loss goes. And then the last page of the graphs are just our total patient days, total emergency room visits, and total clinic office visits. So just kind of give you a representation of how things are trending for the first couple of months in July, or in this year, sorry. Are there questions that I can answer for anyone related to the financial statements?
Actually, kind of looking at the year-to-date, this year-to-date, last year, we're actually quite a bit better. It's hard to say that after a month like that, but we actually are.
We're sitting better than we were this time last August.
Yeah. Any other questions in regards to the financials? If not, we can move on to item B, career report.
So at our special meeting on September 19th, we approved a line of credit for the hospital with Community Bank, and as part of that agreement, we agreed to establish an operating account at Community Bank, which we do not currently have, and so this item would just be to allow us to open that operating account at Community Bank.
Okay. So it has the following signatories.
And those are our signatories that are on all of our other accounts.
Any questions in regards to that? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve establishing an operating account at Community Bank and authorizing the following signatories: Jason Gaspard, Ayla Simon, Candace Allen, Angelica Brady, and Chris Lauderdale.
Second.
Have a motion by Dr. Hannaford, a second by Dr. Simon, to approve the establishing of an operating account at Community Bank and to authorize the following signatories: Jason Gaspard, Ayla Simon, Candace Allen, Angelica Brady, and Chris Lauderdale. Roll call vote, please.
Simon? Yes. Brown?
Yes.
Hannaford?
Yes.
Gaspard?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next item is the Med Staff Committee. Candace?
If I can see. We had med staff on September the 21st. And we have some reappointments, it looks like.
Can we go ahead and move on?
Yeah, do you want to do
I
that?
move to reappoint to active staff Scott Burke, MD, internal medicine.
Second.
Have a motion by Dr. Simon, a second by Dr. Hannaford to reappoint to active staff Scott Burke, MD, internal medicine. Roll call vote, please.
Brown?
Yes.
Hannaford?
Yes.
Gaspard?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Simon?
Yes. I move to reappoint to active staff J. Christine Burke, MD, pediatrics.
Second.
Have a motion by Dr. Simon, a second by Greg Bowman to reappoint to active staff J. Christine Burke, MD, pediatrics. Roll call vote, please.
Hannaford?
Yes.
Gaspard?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Simon?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
I move to reappoint to courtesy staff Jody Lynn, Kagua Aquino, MD, hospitalist. Just spelling way wrong, I apologize. Sorry, Jody Lynn.
Have a motion by Dr. Simon, a second by Dr. Hannaford to reappoint to courtesy staff Jody Lynn, Aquino, MD, hospitalist. Roll call vote, please.
Bowman?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Hannaford?
Yes.
Gaspard?
Yes.
Simon?
Yes. I move to reappoint to courtesy staff John Gregg, MD, General Surgery.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Simon, a second by Greg Bowman to reappoint to courtesy staff John Gregg, MD, General Surgery. Roll call vote, please.
Gaspard,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Hannaford.
Yes.
I move to reappoint to courtesy staff Brady Reed, CRNA, Anesthesiology.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Simon, a second by Dr. Hannaford to reappoint to courtesy staff Brady Reed, CRNA, Anesthesiology. Roll call vote, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Gaspard.
Yes.
I move to reappoint to allied staff Tate Endersby, CRNA, Anesthesiology.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Simon, a second by Greg Bowman to reappoint to allied staff Tate Endersby, CRNA, Anesthesiology. Roll call vote, please.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Gaspard,
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
I move to reappoint to courtesy staff Trenton Medford, DO, Family Practice.
Second.
Well,
Oh, that was close.
I think it's Hannaford's turn based
It
on,
was based on,
yeah.
I was waiting for Dr. Brown to get back in the mix there.
You guys are doing fine.
I have a motion by Dr. Simon, a second by Dr. Hannaford to reappoint to courtesy staff Trenton Member, DO, Family Practice. Roll call vote, please.
Brown,
Yes.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Gaspard,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon.
Yes.
Okay. Next item is coffee.
Oh, everybody get comfy in your chairs. I'm gonna cover A through H in my little coffee report. First up is nursing ER. Nursing had 572 tasks and ED tasks that were reviewed by coffee committee. They stand at 95.5 and 96.3% compliance with their tasks in SQSS. All 257 QI studies, 257 QI studies is what we're monitoring for the nursing staff. And these are all trending upward. The majority of these QI studies are employee related, such as blood transfusions, COBRA forms being filled out appropriately. Urgent care, all 34 tasks were reviewed by the coffee committee. Currently the task compliance is only at 92%. We've had turnover in the urgent care, and some of those tasks have been missed and have been reassigned to those staff members. We reviewed 7 QI initiatives, and those are also trending downwards, so we are monitoring those and trying to get those employees on track for those. But that's what it's for, is to be able to identify when something like that happens, instead of when somebody quits not knowing that you're not doing something, and then all of a sudden when you have survey, that's when you discover it. That's what this is meant to identify. So it is working. Business office had 75 tasks, and they are at 99.6 compliance. Good job. They had 11 QI studies being reviewed, and those are going well. And they are shuffling around some tasks as well in the business office area. Claim audits, we had 13 claim auditor tasks that were reviewed, and they were at a rate of 100%. HR had 46 tasks, they're 100% compliant, and they had 4 QI initiatives being monitored, and these are all compliant as well. Utilization review had 13 tasks, and they're currently at 84.7 due to 2 tasks being non-compliant related to chart reviews of Dr. Jarrett. And I will say, just to kind of put this out there, we are trying to figure out how to address this. Frequently, we have certain insurance payers that if you have one of their subscribers in the hospital, you have to call and do a peer-to-peer. So that is Dr. Jarrett, who is our telehospitalist, has to take time out of his day to call the insurance company's doctor, and you can imagine how hard it is to get those two to connect. and today was about the last straw. They gave us a few hours and it timed out and they're not covering it. So I'm thinking maybe insurance commissioner or something along that lines. We've got to get this word out and get that information out there of how challenging it is with some of these insurance companies, what they're doing to us, the hoops that these doctors are having to jump through, and us being challenged or not getting paid for the care that we're giving. So,
Do you think that's in any relation to the commercials that are out right now that the state health department is putting out about big insurance companies taking stuff out of the hands of doctors? It's on right around the news each
I haven't
night.
seen it.
Okay.
I'm already sleeping.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
But I'll look for it.
All right.
Okay.
Record the news and you'll find it.
Okay, all right. Let's see, that was utilization review, drug room. They had 78 tasks and they were at 96.1%. Some of the things that they monitor, for instance, would be temperatures with their refrigerators to make sure that those refrigerators stay within the right temperatures. So they're staying on track. Quality minute documentation. DNV is the company that surveys us. They were on site in April of '23. During this visit, the hospital was cited with the Quality Management Oversight Committee does not have a mechanism to share data for quality improvement metrics to include the required elements of QM7. Emphasis is placed on task management and completion of their current QA studies rather than presentation of quality metric data in order to evaluate that data and make a determination of the effectiveness of processes and services. The committee now, to achieve this, will pull up the task manager program in SQSS and reviews compliances with the daily tasks. So that's what I went over with you, is the compliances with the daily task. So those were all the departments. Patient satisfaction surveys, nothing to report there, or grievances. There were no grievances to report. No device recalls. We did have one employee ill for the month of August. They did not have COVID, and at that time it was not trending. I have not heard any reports of any. You had one out with COVID. I've not had any over here that I can recall that have had COVID. But it is in the community. We are seeing more of it. Infection control initiatives, the two QI studies that were reviewed by the Coffee Committee continue to be compliant. The infection control preventative maintenance was reviewed by the committee and shows that the healthcare acquired infections, culture rates, and SSIs and infections of each patient admitted. There were no contaminated blood cultures for the month of August. And it looks like we did have 8 occurrences for the month of August. We used to call those incident reports. 2 of the occurrences were falls. One was for the CT machine being down for maintenance. One was an infection control concern of blood on the sidewalk. A barefoot patient walking all over the sidewalk of blood. And then the last was a contract being missed. And that is all I have. You are welcome. I know you enjoyed that.
Any questions for Candace in regards to QAPI? If not, we'll move on to improvement to patient care. If you go back to that tab, you'll have in front of that, there were 16 tasks under contract review and renewal.
There was one contract that was not reviewed because it actually isn't due, so it's in the system incorrectly, correct? Richard will.
Yes, it doesn't renew until November 1st.
And then on the second page, it is the periodic review summary report, of which
those are procedures that come back before you for approval.
Yeah, and that's what we have to have approval on, the revisions report dated August 31st, 2023. Are there any questions on that? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the revisions report dated August 31st, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Hannaford, a second by Dr. Simon, to approve the revisions report dated August 31st, 2023. Roll call vote, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Gaspard,
Yes.
Simon.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess first let's do the sheriff on report about that, and we'll make it into the rest of it.
So as far as the report's concerned, census for August was at 28.9, about a half patient down from July. We had some good outcomes. This site might be the first time since that I can remember that all of our quality measures were better than state and U.S. averages of the 4 that we get paid extra to have. So I don't know if you've got a color copy or black and white, but all of those categories are green underneath our quality measures, pay for performance quality measures. So no high-risk residents with pressure ulcers, no UTIs, no weight loss, and only one person that has an antipsychotic prescription. So that's all really good. You can see our satisfaction numbers there. In 3 of our categories, we're exceeding national benchmarks. Our call time is good for our nurse call system. And as far as just how things are going with the staff, in 5 of the 6 categories that we measure and report every month, we are exceeding the national benchmark. I had just kind of this overall job satisfaction. When I go back and look at the employees that responded to the questions related to that, there's a question it asks, is this your ideal job? Well, most of the people that responded to this are nurse aides that are in, going to nursing school or pre-med or whatever it is. So no, their ideal job is to be a nurse or a doctor. And so I think that's the contributing factor to that being low right there. On that note, in consideration of what we're moving forward with the transaction for sale and management agreement, this is the last month that you'll get a report from me on employee satisfaction. We've decided to not have that ongoing expense at this time. There are some requirements to have resident satisfaction, so we'll continue to have resident satisfaction surveys completed. In our staffing, we only had 1 day in August where we were outside of our parameters for ideal staffing. So we had 1 day where we were understaffed. We didn't have any days where we were overstaffed. Our salaries were $76,000, but part of our staffing includes agency, and I do have 2 full-time, or 1 full-time RN and 1 full-time LPN, and the LPN gets overtime every other week, and that is I think that's the entirety of that agency bill, is those 2 people. So, other than that, we're doing a good job at being efficient with our staff. It's just the agency staff are expensive. We still have not received our life safety survey from the state, but we did finish our final plan of correction and submit to the state, and they approved that. So. There should be no issues with our compliance status that would impact the transaction with nursing home. From a financial standpoint, we did have a better month. We had been, if you look at the month-to-month comparisons, we had been having a net loss since June, $60,000, and we cut that in half for August. It was related to some intentional expense reductions and staffing changes. So that's, well, we didn't lose as much. It's not good. We didn't lose as much. Any questions about nursing home?
Any questions for Kelly? If not, we will move to the next item. That is discussion and action to approve or disapprove the management agreement by and between Alva Hospital Authority, doing business as Share Medical Center and Share Convalescent Home, and Oklahoma Public Trust, and Beetle Operations LLC, an Oklahoma limited liability company, and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to sign all related documents for execution of the management agreement. Okay, so we got these back 30 minutes before this meeting started, and there are a few changes from what the original management agreement. Let me first turn it over to you to share anything you want about the management agreement, I guess. The idea of the management agreement between now and so.
I don't know where you want me to start. Essentially, the idea would be that with the management agreement, and in the interest of a smooth transition, the management agreement will allow Beetle's management staff to begin working out of our facility and take over the management and employment of our staff. That being the case, you know, the agreement kind of sets forth the parameters for which that will occur. They would be responsible for basically all the operating expenses, with the exception of the property insurance premium. You know, they would also then, from the date that the management agreement goes into effect, they would also get all the revenue off of the operation. So
Pay all the expenses.
They pay all the expenses. The primary thing that Candace and I have been working with our attorney on is just whatever we can do to reduce our risk exposure. We feel like, you know, depending on how the board would look at some of the terms, we feel like this is something the board could approve, if that was your preference. I don't have it up open in front of me at the moment, though, to talk about the specific changes that
I can go over the changes.
Okay. Did I miss? Okay.
So this still says October 1st, and is that agreed?
It'll have to be November 1st.
The effective date won't be until the state says it's okay.
Sure.
So we approve this management agreement, then it has to go to the state for state approval. So you can imagine what they have, what was it, 2 weeks?
Literally, they have to approve the document. They will go through it and
They have 2 weeks to respond, but that response does not have to be yes or no.
they can ask questions or
Right.
whatever. So
And
we
then
don't know
you
how long.
can
it will
imagine
take.
how long this can go back and forth.
Like I mentioned in my report, we just had a clean state survey. Our outcomes right now are as good as they've ever been. There should be absolutely no reason that the state would be opposed to us going into this transaction. Beatles is always having good surveys. They've got a history of that. They're a reputable company in the state. And so from that standpoint, other than the state maybe not having as much staff as they need to have to be able to,
Yeah,
to
materially,
address
they're
this.
looking to make sure that the patients, that the residents will be taken care of, and that there's no holes in that agreement, you know, that would put them at risk. So-
Is there any difference when you say that ours says the management agreement would start October 1st, but it doesn't necessarily officially until the state says?
I think
Are our
ours,
terms still the same through that time as they cover all expenses and get all revenue? Or how is?
Until the state approves it, it's still us.
Okay, and that's what we talked about, we'd have to work those things out until
Right.
that time, and then,
Right.
we're basically in that pattern right now.
Our agreement, our verbal agreement, I believe, was that we would start at the first of the month.
The first of the month following state approval.
Yeah.
So if it got approved on October 20th, it'd be November 1st.
Right.
If it's November 15th, it's December 1st.
If it's November 2nd, it's December 1st.
Right.
So from what we had sent over and what the attorneys had talked, and then this came back today, there's a couple of changes on the management agreement. The first one is if either party materially defaults in the performance of any of its duties or obligation under this agreement, which default is not substantially cured within 10 days after written notice is given to the defaulting party specifying the default, or with respect to those defaults which cannot reasonably be cured within 10 days, if the defaulting party fails to proceed within 10 days to commence curing said default and proceed with all due diligence substantially to cure the default, but in any event does not substantially cure the default within 30 days, then the party not in default may, by giving written notice of termination to the defaulting party, terminate this agreement as of the date specified in the notice of the termination. Such termination date being subsequent to the date of the notice. The idea is if everything was, so that is added language, which I suppose is reasonable with, in regards to either party not holding up their end of the bargain. This agreement would normally automatically terminate upon the closing of the sale of the property. Make sense? The next item was in regards to, we were to keep property insurance because we still own the property. But in our original agreement, they were taking care of all expenses. Now they want us to pay those expenses, which is
About $700 a month.
about $700 a month.
Property insurance,
Right.
so if someone gets injured on the property?
There's a liability factor, but yeah, or if it was to burn down, blow away, hailstorm, something of that nature.
That's what I was gonna ask, is what is our liability in us keeping this
They
site?
have, their professional liability, that will be theirs. So if they have an employee that acts inappropriately and there's, they're found at fault, then that's on them, that's not on us. But what we're talking about is if the roof is damaged in a hailstorm or a tree blows over and knocks out some windows, that's the property insurance that we're speaking of.
but we'd have to have that anyways, as long as we're.
We own it.
Yeah.
What we're asking them to do, that's not what this says, but what we were asking them to do was pay our portion of the premium for that.
Who's paying the deductible?
They would.
Does it say that?
I think the agreement is silent in that regard. So that, is that section 8?
No,
Okay.
no, that's in this, not this one.
Okay.
But Kelly, under this whole deal, anything that happens under their operation with the people, is their responsibility.
That's their
We're not tied to that in any way,
professional
shape, or form, okay.
This is property liability is what that
Just
was.
making sure.
And that first part with the added language, I would assume, Mr. Attorney, that would have to be reasonable of the request of, I mean, they couldn't come back and say, oh, we need to redo this whole wing.
Right.
I mean,
Right,
Yeah, because
yeah.
it's an as-is sale.
Yeah, so I don't think that would be considered. Okay.
There is language in there that anything that they would anticipate, I can't remember the number, but I know we put language in there that anything that they would anticipate significant, financial burden, it would have to come before this board to get approval before we would say it's okay for them to do it.
So there's several parts here. This is the management agreement that we're talking about now. Secondly, then we would talk about the contract for sale. Okay?
This contract's for sale.
Right. So is there any discussion in regards to the management agreement? Does anybody have issue with those changes?
Or those the other ones?
Yep. On the management agreement.
I
No?
suppose the attorney feels good about,
Well, I haven't reviewed this, but this was drafted by the attorney that you guys got. Yeah, McAfee Taft.
Okay.
Helping with that.
okay.
And so Candace and I and McAfee and Taft,
I got it.
I mean, if we're good with this, basically.
Yes? Okay. So I would entertain a motion.
And I think that motion would need to say with the changes.
Well, we have a clean one. There is a clean contract in it.
Well,
Do you have it? What?
yeah, that's right. The management agreement has no changes that are necessary, correct?
Correct.
It stands.
I mean, these changes, but not
But this
anything that we
This is
have an
clean.
issue with.
This is the clean document that reflects those changes.
Yeah, but and I just think the motion needs to say reflecting the changes as discussed. Something
To
to
do whatever your attorney said.
No, I understand. I was making sure you understood what I get.
Because that contract is different from the original.
different from
Right.
the one that was.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the management agreement by and between Alva Hospital Authority, DBA, Share Medical Center, and Share Convalescent Home, and Oklahoma Public Trust, and Beetle Operations LLC, and Oklahoma Limited Liability Company, and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to sign all related documents for execution of the management agreement.
With the changes.
With the said changes within the contract.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Hannaford, a second by Dr. Simon, to approve the management agreement by and between Alva Hospital Authority, doing business as Share Medical Center and Share Convalescent Home, and Oklahoma Public Trust, and Beetle Operations LLC and Oklahoma Limited Liability Company, and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to sign all related documents for the execution of the management agreement with the changes that were made in the agreement. Roll call vote, please.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Gaspard,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Okay, the next item is the discussion and action to approve or disapprove the personal property purchase contract by and between Alva Hospital Authority doing businesses, Share Medical Center, Share Convalescent Home, and Oklahoma Public Trust, seller, and Beatles Operation LLC and Oklahoma Limited Liability Company, buyer, and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to sign all documents for execution of the personal property purchase agreement. So, the item, you want to go over what items we're discussing as that, and I can go over the changes.
So basically, that's all of the fixtures and equipment. We did have a list of items that are exclusions.
Generator, those types of things.
The generator is excluded. I'm sorry. Small screen. You know, in a nutshell, it says that during the term of the management agreement, that we won't remove any of the essential equipment from the property. Goes over the details of, you know, how the transaction will occur.
So does that mean once the sale is approved and then we're gonna start it on the first of the month, on that, right before that, we would take out the things that we have excluded?
Yes. So basically, the exclusions, this is Exhibit A in the agreement, but it's all of our cash, so all of our money, that's our money at the time that we start this thing, that stays our money. Accounts receivable, any of our organizational documents and things of that nature, they wouldn't have access to our benefit plans or insurance contracts. Any claims or I mean, like we're pursuing legal action right now for collection purposes, and so any of that remains, that will be ours. So we're, you know, and then we've got listed here some office equipment. We've got a lease on a printer, scanner, fax, that'll remain ours. We've got listed here to keep our IT equipment, including our servers, CPUs, tablets, and excluding one computer that we'll leave there based on the personnel that they will be hiring. Portable generator, our fiber T1 line and the firewall that's shared between the hospital and the nursing home, that will be retained by us. My office furnishings. The phone system. The phone system is shared with the hospital. The phones themselves.
The software.
The software. The phones themselves, the way this is worded, they're going to have to remain that way during the management agreement, but after the management agreement, they changed this today, so let me read it again before I explain it to you.
It says phone software and operating system components required to be maintained by hospital to continue operating and maintain its phone system. The parties acknowledge and agree that the phone handsets at facilities shall be included among the assets transferred under this agreement and shall not be considered an excluded asset.
So the phones, actually, the actual phones.
The phone handsets,
But not the.
Not the operating system.
not their operating system.
And then there's some other equipment that was over there upon their inspection that does not belong to the nursing home. It's the homesteads, it's the hospitals, it's not the nursing homes. So that's all excluded. And then item 19 on this is any other leased or borrowed, rented, whatever, equipment, mattresses, whatever. If it's leased, borrowed, or otherwise not the possession of the nursing home, it is an excluded asset. Everything else as is.
Are there any questions in regards to that? Are there any issues? Basically, the biggest change was the fact that they're going to keep the handsets.
I will tell you that there'll have to continue to be some mutual, work through this transition to make sure that the patients are taken care of in transition as we move some of these assets out. So, I mean, we don't exactly know what that looks like, but, you know, we agree to work with each other to ensure that happens. And there's language in there that ensures that we will work with them to ensure that happens.
Any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the personal property purchase contract by and between Alva Hospital Authority, DBA, Share Medical Center, and Share Convalescent Home, and Oklahoma Public Trust seller and Beatles Operation LLC and Oklahoma Limited Liability Company buyer, and authorize the chief executive officer to sign all documents and for execution of the personal property purchase agreement.
The changes, is this? With the changes.
With the changes being
With the
made.
changes.
Second.
Have a motion by Greg Bowman, second by Dr. Hannaford, to approve the personal property purchase contract by and between Alva Hospital Authority, DBA, Share Medical Center, and Share Convalescent Home, and Oklahoma Public Trust seller, and Beatles Operation LLC, and Oklahoma Limited Liability Company buyer, and authorize the chief executive officer to sign all documents for execution of the personal property purchase agreement with the changes that were made in the agreement. Roll call vote, please.
Gasper,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Hannaford.
Yes.
All right, next item is the actual sale
Real estate contract.
of the property, the real estate contract. The changes here. So one of the things that they are asking for, and I guess we could read, the purchase property, just so everybody was back on that page, was for $850,000. And $100 for the personal property purchase contract. They were to put down earnest money within 48 hours of the execution of $42,500. They are asking for an exception that if they could not get approval from the state, that they would be able to have all of their earnest money refunded to them.
If they're not able to get approval based on their issues,
If they cannot obtain a certificate of need from the Oklahoma State Department of Health, they're asking for their earnest money back in full.
So I think one of the concerns is in this, we have also garnered expenses through attorneys, fees, and other expenses, mainly the attorney fees
Actually, the appraisal.
and the appraisal.
Which was
Yes.
12,000.
I don't recall.
So I guess one of the things that I kind of wanted to have a discussion about is, I understand that if this can't go through because of that is out of their hands, it's also out of our hands. However, in most situations, the earnest money is there to help recoup our expenses for a transaction in the case that it does fall through.
and it
That's-
doesn't have any language in there that says less are expenses.
Right, so I think that, my opinion is that that should be in there. Any discussion about that? Agree, disagree?
I agree, we shouldn't be out.
Typically, whatever you agree upon on that, it's usually,
They did approach us for sale.
Huh?
They did approach us for sale.
Right, true. Does anybody disagree with doing that?
I think at minimum, we ought to have our expenses back, but I mean,
That's our
I agree.
expenses.
But that's, I still don't really understand why they just take that.
I mean, what if they do changes on the building and then get denied? You know what I mean?
They're not able to do that without our approval.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Through that management agreement, they can't.
They can't change anything.
No, not unless we approve it.
Until the state says, yeah, you're good to go.
I would think at the least we would say less our expenses up to that point.
So our attorney fees are right at $20,000.
And you said the appraisal was 12,000?
That's what I'm saying, it's, if you had that,
Did you find it? What was its name?
The appraisal, she said,
The
was,
appraisal.
how much?
Appraisal's
So you're at
5,000.
25,000 right now, and that's, and there's ongoing attorney's fees.
Yeah, and I don't have
We don't have the last.
the last month's attorney's fees.
And we could still be doing this for another month.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have attorney's fees that'll keep accruing through the sale, through the end, which is 4 months after. There's a time period of 120 days, so we'll be accruing.
could be up to that. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's gonna be,
It's
if
gonna
you
be
did that, they might owe us more at the end, depending on how long it takes for the sale.
Well, but that isn't in there. That would have to be added.
But I know, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if you said less expenses,
We're already at 25 out of the 42.5.
Right.
that's what I was.
So do you want to say up to the,
I just think
I would
it's
say
the earnest money
less
less
our
our
expenses.
expenses.
What's that, anything?
Is that, you think that's doable?
But I mean, do we need to define that further? I mean, what
Our
are-
expenses for attorney fees, appraisal, I mean,
Any of the expenses we're out doing business, doing this deal.
specifically related to the transaction?
Sure.
Yeah.
So Drew, what happens if their earnest money is 425 and this drags on and we go over that and then the deal squashes?
Normally, these contracts are set up that retain the earnest money as liquidated damages.
We just be on whatever overage we have?
Yeah. So how does that need to be worded?
so should we just refuse that request?
Or
I think
can we
we'll-
strike that?
I think you can strike it or add in the language about the expenses and approve it that way. I mean, obviously, this is still contingent on them approving that.
Or do we just table that?
Or, or you could table and say, hey, we'd like to add this in and then have that on the next.
Okay, so you read that and then you
That's
tell
what
us how we need to word
We're
it.
trying to get to a point where with these changes, get to an
Yeah.
approved so that you don't have to keep coming back and forth.
Yeah.
Tell them what you want, and that's what we're gonna try to do with these changes. Because it keeps dragging on.
Okay, while he's doing that, let's talk about the next one, if you're okay with that, Drew. So they would like us to guarantee them written confirmation from the city of Alva, evidence that the use of the land as a skilled nursing facility is permissible, of which we have. So,
Check.
check.
So we move,
Keep your eye on it.
Miss Mineral?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
your Peter,
Apparently. Port. It's right here. It was far away. That's about the escrow as well, because I'm in there twice. What do you guys, what's this?
Page is it?
Your escrow funds. Goes back to like they have that in there twice. You might need that. Okay, the other item is, they would like the sale to include the mineral rights, to the extent that what mineral rights we currently own. There's 3.25 acres, roughly. So,
Is there a huge oil well?
I was gonna say, we have a bunch of revenue.
there's no operating minerals at the moment. I have recently seen some non-operating minerals sell for around $1,300. You're talking about $4,000. Drew, have you seen anything different than that?
No.
I would want to stop the sell over $3,000 or $4,000.
So are we okay with letting the minerals go then?
How many other changes are coming?
How many more?
Yeah,
That's the rest of the primary
okay.
changes. Everything else is like, a word here or there,
Typos,
typos.
address, and address error.
So we can approach it if we accept those other ones, we come back and we're gonna ask for at least our expenses out of the,
Right.
because if it goes through, we get our 42,000, but if it doesn't, then we get our expenses.
Well, that 42, if it goes through, that 42.5 is part of the 850.
Okay. But I'm saying if it doesn't, then we just, whatever less expenses,
We would
we get our
back.
expenses.
Right.
Which is 18,000 right now.
Do you have anything?
Well, I'm looking at this and it says here, so earnest money should be fully refundable to buyer only in the event that closing does not occur as a result of, one, a breach of one or more covenants on part of the seller and or failure of part of the seller to satisfy a condition precedent to closing over which seller has control as set forth herein. Two, buyer's termination of this agreement during the inspection period or based upon a failure of a condition precedent over which seller has control as set forth in paragraphs 4.1 through 4.7 inclusive, except and excluding, however, termination of this agreement based upon the OSDH's disapproval of buyer's opcodes, CON application and or license application resulting from or arising out of the default of the buyer. So that, to me, that's saying the earnest money is not refundable if it's that buyer's fault that they're not approved by OSDH.
That's only if it was on our fault.
Right. That's how I'm interpreting that. So I'm just now looking at this itself.
The other one with the inspection, we've already done the inspection.
This is to be sold as is.
Right,
Right. So it almost seems like that
can be taken out.
should be taken out.
Is that referring to state inspection?
Buyer's termination of this agreement during the inspection period or based upon a failure of condition precedent over the seller, over which seller has control, as set forth in paragraphs 4.1.7.
4.1.
1.1 is title insurance commitment. Inspection, it should have been 4.2. Inspection matters.
Well, leave it as is then.
It says in its as-is physical condition, buyer is relying solely upon its own examination of the facility. Buyer hereby represents that it is not relying upon any warranties, promises, guarantees, or representations by the seller.
Which is true.
What's the purpose of the earnest money in every deal I've ever dealt is, that's what its purpose is to be forfeited if the deal doesn't go through on Mary. So
That's what I'm saying.
I just don't understand.
What their attorney told our attorney is that they feel like they put enough skin in the game at this point for us to recognize that they're serious.
Then the
Is that
earnest money's
basically
a
the way you
null
understood
issue
it?
and we go on with it.
What's that?
I just feel like that's the whole purpose of earnest money. They're coming into this deal, this is going through, it's an as-is sale. It, you know, that's the point of earnest money, but.
Well, I think the problem is when you want it, you've already, if they've referenced the wrong section anyways,
Because we,
Well, they reference 4.1 through 4.7. So,
Okay.
okay,
yeah.
okay.
I like that. The way I interpret that, and it's been a long day, so I could not be interpreting right, but I interpret that as except and excluding if it was not, if they did not get approval from OSDH, then the earnest money, I mean, because of their fault, we're still entitled to the earnest money.
If they do something, if it's on their end,
Right.
we're still entitled.
Because it's saying here, buyer's termination of this agreement either during, let me see here. So earnest money should be refundable, and we'll skip to number 2. Buyer's termination of this agreement during the inspection period based upon failure of a condition precedent over which seller has control, as set forth in paragraph 4.1 through 4.7 inclusive, except and excluding, however, termination of this agreement based upon OSDH's disapproval resulting from or arising out of the fault of the buyer. So it's saying earnest money would be refunded except for in the case of fault of the buyer to not get approval from OSDH.
But why would they write that in there? That wouldn't even make sense to change it to that.
And I don't know,
Well, especially
do we
when-
know that was
That's what I'm
the
saying.
change?
What's the price?
That was a change they wanted, or was that a change?
Yes.
Yeah,
That was
a recent change.
I mean, when I read that, does that sound like that's saying, that's how I
It
interpret
does sound like it's, if it's of any fault of their own,
Right.
then
That's
it's
how I
not
interpret it.
refunded. But if it's on fault, basically they're protecting themselves in case there's something that we're not complying with or whatever to get them approved.
I think they're wanting their earnest money back if the circumstances surrounding not getting the CO in are outside of their control.
And I would agree that this is, and I don't know how you determine that or who determines.
I was gonna say, wouldn't that be outside of our control then as well?
Well, and I would argue that just because it's outside of our control, or whether it's outside of their control or not, it may well be outside of our control as well. And, you know,
Because the way this read, I think you'd specifically have to have something that said, you didn't get approval,
And,
This is
the reason
why.
why buyer's fault. And I don't know, obviously I'm not an expert in that stuff, so I don't know how they give you that, or if they give you that information, why you got denied.
You know, we've got a lot of skin in the game too at this point, though. We're showing we're serious about this business. We're spending money as well.
Because I think if it came back saying they did not get approval, if they don't have something that says it was their fault that they didn't get approval, it just says didn't get approval.
If it just
I
says
think
denied on it.
that probably gives them an argument to say, well, it wasn't our fault, we just didn't get approved. We should get our money.
So in that manner, should we at minimum add the language?
I think at minimum we want to do that.
Or do we hold the earnest money as it is?
What would you guys rather do? You want to hold the earnest money as is, or do you want it to have?
What could the state deny the deal for as far as it being sheriff's responsibility? I mean, what could we fail at to cause
Is it an
the
on-site
deal?
survey for the certificate of need? We don't know the answer to that, Greg.
I think if they,
The only thing I
I
thought certificate of need
Means we
was-
just had a survey.
I-
There's not any outstanding requirements
I
by us
thought
or
CON
concerns.
though was that the beds were
needed.
needed, that it was nothing to do with the building, the site, the operation, a previous survey. I thought it was related specifically to licensed bed and the need in the community.
And basically, they're not
So-
adding licensed beds to our community.
So basically,
They're taking over.
yeah,
It's theirs,
there's
ours, and
no
ours.
addition.
Right.
Actually, there'll be less beds,
Not,
No.
not initially.
not
No.
initially, and there's no guarantee that there would be less beds because they would still have a property that they
Now.
could continue to have licensed beds in.
However, hypothetically, let me just say this. If they were to go ask for more beds than currently, they could get denied on that. And that would not be, I
That would
mean,
not be our fault.
that would not be our fault.
They would
If
say
they go
that
ask
the perimeter is
for,
out of their hands, is the parameter that they've got written in there. And they could say that's out of their hands.
But it wouldn't be necessarily out of our hands if they were the ones that asked for it.
I don't know. That's all I know.
So
That's all I
Drew,
know.
how do we word that so that it's, other than, either way, I think we at bare minimum have to get our money back. And even at that, you're however many more days down the road, there are other implications other than just the sale. Employees know that we're going in this movement. They're making life decisions. Patients are making decisions based on whether that's good or bad. They're making those decisions. The longer this draws out, it could put us in a bad situation.
Well, I think if you were gonna approve this, approve with the, motion to approve it with the changes and the addition of language to recoup our expenses in regards to the transaction. And then I think you probably have sent this to the McAfee attorney to put whatever language he thinks.
That's what I'm saying, if we do that, I mean, might as well table it then. What do you think? I know what you're thinking, Jake, but I mean,
I don't think it would take that attorney long to add in that language, so if you table it, I think you could probably have it be a quick turnaround for a special meeting, get everybody here, but.
So can you verbalize what we would want in that contract so it's on record, so that we can approve it with those changes? And if it's anything different than that, we will have to come back.
I do, or I think you're gonna
if
need
we
to,
approve it,
We'll do that.
you're gonna need that, at minimum, we gotta pencil that in and
So up to this point, every agreement that we've approved, there's documentation what those changes are in the document that they sent us.
and that we're signing.
And that's what, the only thing that bothers me is we get this 30 minutes before meeting. So, I mean, and I'm not saying it's their fault, it's the law meeting.
So we just,
Sorry, not you.
yeah, hey, so I guess here's another question, is we just approved the sale of all the personal property.
But I don't think that happens if the real estate transaction doesn't go through.
I don't think it says that.
I think it does.
In the sale of the property, not the personal property, the actual real estate, it says $100 for the personal property. So in the personal property, it does not say that.
Well, so why don't you undo that? Because we just sold everything for $100.
That agreement doesn't say even $100.
We just gave it away.
Yeah.
Oh,
Whereas temporarily with this agreement, seller and buyer have entered into management agreement. And, okay, Drew, read in the recitals, the bottom two whereas. That's the property purchase agreement, the personal property.
Well, it references the other agreements, but I don't know that it.
I guess the question is because we approved that other one, is that, do we need to, is there, if and what we need to do to
Let me see if I can
disapprove that?
I want to find all the references to real estate.
what you can do is just stick with, say the change is gonna be to keep the earnest money, make it simple, and then let that go back to them.
That we just take out the part that they wanted to add.
What do you guys want to do?
Like I said, the minimum I think you have to have is make sure we get our expenses back. I think it's gonna end up being that amount anyways.
So do we omit that and move on? Or do you guys want to table this and have it rewritten?
Give me a second, I can find out if we're
What are you looking for?
something that says that the,
One is
The-
contingent upon the other.
yeah.
Is that the only change in this one?
It was that, the minerals, which we were okay
You
with,
were just gonna say, yeah.
and the
And the insurance on the property.
insurance on the property.
Mr. Chairman, can we look at D, since that involves the management agreement?
Number 4, under,
Hey,
uh,
number one.
page, this says, time and place of closing, the transaction shall be closed simultaneously with and at the same location as the closing of the real estate contract of sale. So if the real estate contract of sale does not close, then the personal property sale does not
That's not
close.
close.
I think you argued that.
You want to read it? Gemini?
Please.
Get him some coffee and then let him read it.
Yeah.
Tea's pretty strong, I think just a shot
Is
of
it?
that tea.
Yeah.
The popcorn and hot chocolate.
Kelly's had popcorn and hot chocolate for lunch today.
It's quite bad.
Yeah, but once again, that's just
Um,
typo place.
700 months.
Obviously reference.
That's what you're
I
saying?
don't know.
So let's say 2,800,
So at least,
This one's gonna be.
700 months. I'm saying 4 months.
Like two more references.
That's a great question, I don't know.
So I did ask about that. The system itself is worth like $10,000, but the phone, the handsets, he said were.
Did you read the next one?
No.
Five.
Hey, do you want me to move?
Nominal, like very different. That's what he said, that when we asked the
Okay, that
person
one,
the
I
other
think.
thing.
That one does it?
I think that one.
All right.
Because they.
So we're okay?
So then on those three changes, we're at 7,000-ish.
Right. All right, so are we, do we want to table it or do we want to leave it or exclude the refund of earnest money?
Or add the language of the expenses, either way.
Well, I think if we want to do that, we need to table it, right?
I think that'd probably be best.
because you're gonna have to define expenses at that point.
Yeah.
Is that our time? That incredible amount of time?
I'd say we approve as is with our, original,
Do not accept their change.
do not accept
Down that item.
On that.
on that item, and then balls in their court if,
Okay. Does everybody understand that?
We're saying
So
that the
that-
earnest money would stay with us.
Right.
Regardless.
That would then basically be approving with changes, with the exception of the changes pertinent to 1.3 termination.
Were there any other changes that we haven't heard yet?
No, not 1.3, that's
$1.3.
management.
2.1, okay.
You say that, but I gave you another piece of paper that they referenced that in 2 spots.
And
said 2.1 through 2.
It was like 2.1 and like,
and then it'd be 10.6.
2.1 and 10.6. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So before we sign that, that needs to be. Okay. Whew. All right. So I would entertain a motion.
I just want to make sure you get it. So we're gonna
We're on
approve
C.
this with the changes except 2.1 and 10.6. Okay.
Correct.
To
I'll make-
reject those, correct? 2.1 and 10.
I reject the changes.
Yes.
Yep.
2.1, 10.6.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the real estate contract of sale by and between Alva Hospital Authority, DBA, Share Medical Center, and Share Convalescent Home, Oklahoma Public Trust, seller, and Beatles Operation LLC, and Oklahoma Limited Liability Company buyer. With all changes, proposed except rejecting the changes of 2.1 and 10.6. and authorize the chief executive officer to sign all documents for the execution of the real estate contract of sale.
Second.
If you feel that is worded correctly.
Okay.
Good
I have a
job.
motion by Dr. Hannaford, a second by Greg Bowman,
I think it-
to approve the real estate contract to sell by and between Alva Hospital Authority doing business as Share Medical Center and Share Convalescent Home and Oklahoma Public Trust seller and Beatles Operation LLC and Oklahoma Limited Liability Company buyer with the changes made to the contract with the exception of 2.1 and 10.6, which should be excluded. Those changes should be excluded.
That's a little better.
And authorize the chief executive officer to sign all documents for the execution of the real estate contract of sale. Roll call vote, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Gasper.
Yes. Woo. All right, next item. We have the discussion and action to identify and authorize 3 signatories for the operating account in accordance with the management agreement by and between Alva Hospital Authority doing business as Share Medical Center and Share Convalescent Home and Oklahoma Public Trust and Beatles Operation LLC and Oklahoma Limited Liability Company.
We did not authorize the signatories last time. We approved the opening of the account, but did not authorize signatories because the management agreement had not been approved.
So,
So this will basically just mean when we even everything up at the end of the deal,
each month or whatever.
however,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Because we're gonna use our account
Yeah,
for
no,
all the
I-
monies to come in.
I know, but do we need to table this too, or do we assume who they want on it, or do we table this also?
It was to be defined in the management agreement, but it was not defined in the management agreement. So then we made the table it until we can define that.
That would make sense. If we don't know who they are, we can appoint our own, but we don't have any authority to appoint who they are.
Oh, we could.
Does everybody understand? We don't have who their
It's
people are.
not within
And
the,
we have time.
Yeah,
That's not,
that one.
that's not time sensitive.
Okay.
So I would entertain a motion to table.
I'll make a motion to table item D.
second.
Have a motion by Greg Bowman, a second by Dr. Hannaford to table item 8D. Roll call vote, please.
Simon?
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Hannaford,
Yes.
Gasper,
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Okay,
This homestead report better be quick.
yeah. Kelly, you have anything to say about the homestead?
Homestead's rocking along.
Check.
We made roughly $40,000 worth. I told you I didn't have the finances report last month. There's roughly $40,000 worth of additional revenue in the August numbers, which corrects errors in the reporting from June and July. Other than that, their census is up and they're getting some things repaired from previous damage.
Okay. Anything from the foundation?
Nope.
St. Anthony's give us anything?
Nope.
Greg, do you have anything from the council?
3 things. Airport light repairs have started. The water meter install has been resumed, and the city is going to get a nice upgrade to the water system, a new water tank, several thousand feet of lines coming to town, and also several thousand feet of residential lines, with no increase to rates or cost to the people. That's it.
All right, very good, thank you. Under my report, I regretfully have to inform you that Jay Randalls has turned in his resignation from the board. And so, first of all, we want to thank him for his time and efforts on this board and everything that he has done for the medical center, and we will miss him. He was a very good addition to our finance committee. So now we're
You want to,
be up to the mayor. Huh?
do you want to tell why, or does it matter?
To the mayor to appoint a new member
With council approval.
with council approval. I have no items of new business. The next meeting is October 24th. Oh, okay. Unless, oh, wait, would we possibly have a special meeting for sale?
For sale,
I mean, the,
Signatories.
or would that be fine to do at the next meeting?
That last item.
The AD.
We should be able to do that.
Yeah, that's the
At
next meeting.
Okay.
There's no
All right.
hurry on that.
Great, we're adjourned.